What's up, Slice and Dicers? Today's episode is all going to be about ability scores. We also even have a roll initiative for you, which is where we're going to kick things off today. Our guest for today is going to be my brother again. We're going to have some really cool episodes coming up soon. We got some friends coming in. We're going to talk more about that at the end of the episode. But get ready for today's episode, which is what are ability scores? So our roll initiative for this week comes to us from John Pointer, who says, question about creating backstory for homegrown adventures for new DMs. How much detail should a new DM flesh out for their own adventures? Can there be too much, too little? Where's the balance?
Well, I know this is a question that every experienced DM is going to give you a different answer for, because every experienced DM has had that world where they've really gotten into it, put a bunch of hours in, created a massive pantheon, established a massive world, and then their party uses a little bit of it, and none of them are clerics or use any of the religious gods or anything. And yeah, it's a bit frustrating, but there's a balance, and having a good world for your party really helps.
Oh, no, definitely. I feel like you got to find a balance here. You can have a lot of detail. So, I mean, I almost argue that too much detail is sort of a go to
Can
back and
bog
forth.
things down.
And sometimes the story gets so detailed, it makes it seem slow to some players. I have a bit of ADD. Like, I've never been diagnosed, but I know it slows down sometimes. And Oliver can tell you here, I've fallen asleep as a player before on online campaigns because there's like this rich story going on, and I'm just like, I'm exhausted. I've had a long day. And the group's like, Daniel, wake up.
It's your turn. Shoot
Exactly.
something. Oh, I'm up. I'm ready to shoot something. And sometimes that's all your players want, is just to run into a combat and behead goblins with arrows.
Yeah, that's true. Goblin murdering is fun. We all know that. So, I mean, I think one of the thing is you really got to feel your party out. Some of them are going to want this experience, but they don't really care if you have 700 cities and kingdoms and worlds and a whole pantheon. Just write your session and flesh from there. And I
Yep.
feel like you need to feel the personality of your group. A good, wholesome D&D session is based on collaboration between your players and your DM. They have to work together in one sort of, you know, happy melting pot.
Yeah.
Uh,
They are the heroes of the story. They want to have an impact. You need to let them shape the world as much as you shape. If some of them are starting to really get interested and they've developed their character and they're looking for something that's not really been in your world, you didn't plan for it to be in your world, but you think they would like it, have the flexibility to, let what they want within reason exist.
exactly. The biggest thing to remember is a lot of people get drunk with DM power. You get this perception, I can do whatever I want, I am God. No. Your goal is to make a story that your players enjoy. We've referenced this on previous episodes. When you flesh out, don't feel like you have to flesh out every minute detail. And if you have a player that's getting caught up on anything you fleshed out and you didn't give them enough justification or reason, the player is probably a dick and it's probably not going to have a fun time anyway. So that's not on you, that's on them. And that's it. I hope we answered your question, John. Feel free to add more. Guys, please throw these questions out there. We'd love to dive in. We'll
That was a
post.
great one.
That was a great question. If you do it, we'll post your question down here. Your little image and things will be up there. Assuming we get PG stuff. I don't want any like, you know,
Yeah.
Scott nudes
We
over
won't be
here.
delving into the blue tome.
Yes, I don't want any like Scott nudes showing up down here. Oh God, that's really hard. You
Yeah.
ever
Okay.
you ever remember Mario Party where you inverted things on the controllers? That's what it feels like when I'm trying to do this and it's all on flip. So I am a YouTube nub, guys. All right, but yeah, please keep the questions coming. We're excited to answer them for you. What's up, everybody? It's story time for this week. Um, story time.
I think we're gonna do things a bit differently. As we've been going on here, your guests have always been the ones telling the stories. So why don't we mix it up today, and you tell us one of your stories? You're probably the most experienced DM that I know, so I'm sure you've got some good ones.
Yeah. I've got stories. I also feel like I have D&D Alzheimer's. Like I almost Like, it's really funny because, like, and I got one. I have one picked out. But I also, every time I'm with my players, they're always like, remember that time you did this? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And then I remember it when they tell me, but I don't know. There's a lot, it's a lot jumbled up in here. But, yeah, I got one for you. I want to tell you all the story. Gather round, children. Come up close and listen to Mr. Daniel tell you the story. Now, I want to tell you all the story of just a couple of little examples of, we've talked about how a player group can throw a DM for a loop. Well, mine is one of my groups here. And this was in a recent campaign I ran, and just all the many different elements of what they had. This is actually a two-part story because it's related around one thing. And uh, we had a situation in which a giant chimera was bearing down on the party, and this a hole up here, yeah, he was playing a bard, Ulysses Latau, which I'm sure he'll tell you about in his like weird Leonardo
I am
DiCaprio
so
having to.
interested to hear as you regale us in this tale of my exploits.
Yes, exactly what he said. So here's the deal. This chimera is bearing down on the party. It's a giant battle kind of war scenario, and they see it coming, and he just starts having a blast because of one item, which is going to be the second part of the story, which is called the Rod of Random, a homebrewed element of my own choosing. There's other things out there like the Wad of Wonder and things like that, but I decided to come up with the Rod of Random. More on that in a second. But he casts this Rod of Random, and he basically intoxicates this chimera coming at them. It has a random effect, chooses a target, that kind of thing. So the Chimera is like weaving, flying in. And then he realizes this is my chance. So instead of them at level 7 or 6 fighting a Chimera, which would have been a hard task, instead he convinces by taking the form of the Chimera's like boss, who was the lady who was his dark sorceress, who they were going to fight. Taking her form using Change Self and projecting his voice and using all his little bardy tricks, rolls high on all the checks, just thwarts my whole thing. It knocks a whole encounter out of my session. Because he convinces her that she's embarrassed by him coming into the battle inebriated and casts him back off, which is actually become a reoccurring character in their sessions, which I'm sure we'll talk about another day. This poor chimera that wants to fight the group and can never do it. Because they always figure out a way to get out, like usurp the ability to fight them. But you were really excited, and so that's sort of one of my things. But that comes back to that Rod of Random I mentioned. Um, there's all kinds of items like this. I cannot claim originality for it, but none are like my rod. Yeah, yeah. Many rods, but only one is mine. No, I'm just kidding. Insert phallic reference here. But the Rod of Random has 100 random effects. When one uses it, which it has a charge every 30 minutes, so I have to sort of keep up with it in
Really
rounds.
powerful.
Really powerful. I mean, this is a wondrous item. When you use it, it has 100 random effects. Roll the percentage die. Some of them can be very detrimental. Launch your entire.
I've taken my clothes off several times.
You have you, and the targets, the objects. It's not just to a target. Some of them reverse and rebound on itself. Uh, Caster changes sex. Um, Target becomes purple. A harem of hookers descend from the heavens and grind on your target,
I
which
remember that
had
one movie.
happened to a giant rockworm they were fighting. Most confused rockworm, that poor thing, died of just sheer confusion. Hit its head on a stalactite and went down, but the group was like just coup de grace it. But um, the weapon things are the random effects are crazy. Launch an asteroid at your target. Like some of them are amazing. Some of them will bite you in the ass. Entire party, anyone within 10 feet of the caster is launched 1,000 feet in the air. All right. There's some.
Thwarted that one.
Oh yeah, you thwarted that one, but you guys were lucky at how you did that.
Yeah.
I guess the point of this story is DMs be creative. Do fun stuff. Make your own items. I feel like too often we feel like we have to use what's canon, what's printed. No, homebrew your stuff. Keep it balanced, but homebrew it.
That is one issue that people run into is how do you balance something homebrew? And there's where you can't be afraid to hit it with the Nerf hammer if you find it's too weak. Or sometimes you find it's kind of worthless for your party. Talk with them, get their feeling. You might can revamp it a little.
Like an
Be
item.
willing to work with your party.
Another item that I made for my group was a ring. All right? And you put the ring on your finger, and you instantly shrunk down, and the ring was the size of your belt. So you're like, go from full size to this big. It was wonderful. I thought it'd be cool. They could scout, let the rogue have it. It would be an awesome weapon. But to show you how a group can come out with different ways to look at things, they used it as a way to get around targets and things. They would shrink each other and mage hand themselves from place to place. Like, there was nowhere that they couldn't go. And I can't punish them because it was smart. Although I could eventually make that ring disappear.
Yeah,
Bum, bum,
I'm
bum.
expecting it.
Yes. But we're really excited. And I'm picking back up with that group, the one Oliver's in with Ulysses, this fall. And I'm excited. I've got a whole group of sessions written. And it's cool when players enjoy their characters so much that even after 5 or 6 sessions, they want to keep playing them.
Oh yeah.
Because I feel like there's a meme out there. It shows the group from Monty Python and the group of Lord of the Rings. And the Lord of the Rings group is like how most D&D groups start. And then it shows the Monty Python group. It's like how most of them end. It's cool when you have a group that sort of sticks together. So there's my story for today. Be creative, come up with your own stuff, and never expect your party not to thwart you in some way, shape, or form. It's part of being a DM. So, but that's my story time for today. So, children, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the encounter. Like I said, this week's question is, what are ability scores? So, I got it right for once. I'm proud of myself. I pointed to the actual thing on the screen. Uh, of course, it was at the bottom. I've been worried if I didn't do it. So there's an old proverb for any D&D enthusiasts or D&D experts that have your direct correlation to your stats based on how you would handle a tomato. Which I love this, so we're going to go with that sort of proverb, which is first strength. The proverb is how well you could crush a tomato. But let's be honest, like an infant can crush a tomato. So I'm going with my own route on that is how far you could throw a tomato. We're talking some straight up punkin' chunkin', throwing shit, long distances kind of tomato stuff. So anyway, that's where we're going with that.
Yeah.
So
It's the stat of how beefy, how strong you are, how much you can carry, how hard you can hit.
how can you
Strength
can you knock down
is
a
how
door?
strong you are. It's very simple. It's pretty straightforward, and most things you think of is how high can you jump, how hard can you punch, what can you lift up. That's all strength. It's pretty straightforward.
I mean, let's be honest. Like the average ability stat, like if you consider an average person, like walking down the street in your game, has an ability score of 8 to 10. All right, they're pretty good at that thing, but not great. You know, not getting high stat roll bonuses.
Yeah.
Strength of 18. That's like the dude you see like Jersey Shore, straight up the guy like, yo, do you even lift? Oh yeah, I'm gonna do 700 reps. That guy. All right.
No, that's probably over. I'd say 18 is those guys you see lifting up the boulders on the World's Strongest Man competition.
Exactly. The guy that you're like, oh. I mean, those
Yeah.
guys are the high. I mean, 20, you're talking like demigod, like Hercules
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So, I think a lot of people get obsessed. We're such a video game based culture that we're like, oh man, a 14, I suck. No, you're really good. You're just not like Hercules good. You know, like
Yeah.
it'll slowly go up. But, you know, an average dude, like working at the stable, has got like a strength of 9. You're 14. You're way stronger than him. But, you know, those are stats are. Which leads us to Dex. Dex is your ability to dodge a tomato that has been thrown at you. Or the other way is how accurately you could throw a tomato. So, both sides of that argument. Because a lot of throwing and shooting stats are based on your dexterity and your finesse. Dexterity is basically finesse. I mean,
How
strength.
sneaky you are, how good are you at landing, how good are you at accurately hitting that guy's glowing weak spot.
Oh, yes. Go back to video game culture. It's like, huh, that spot's glowing on him. That's probably where I should aim. No, like, that's basically, guys, like, you have the ability to have amazing finesse in your actions. An average person could do a cartwheel, maybe. A guy with 18 dexterity does like 3 cartwheels and a springing backflip forward while flipping off everybody and throwing 3 darts into a target. Like, that's their finessity. I mean, they're just super accurate. And because of it, we've actually brought in the ability on D&D to do weapon finesse, where you hit your targets with your ability to have a high
Using a
dex score.
rapier as it is.
Yeah, rapier and things like that. To hit a precise location over just thought crush real hard, blah blah blah. So that's the transition there, which leads us to Constitution, which is your ability to eat a rotten tomato and not get sick from doing it. Which I'm hoping your character is not doing too often, like to prove their Constitution. But really, it comes down to how well you can hit a hit, how many hit points you have, how well you resist disease. Classes like Barbarian and Fighter need high constitutions because
How
they're.
much it takes to get you drunk. That's a big one for Constitution in a lot of sessions.
Oh yeah, or another one, how long you could have sex with your character, which
Endurance,
are weird
yes.
people. Yeah, because we all will have that one player in your group who's like, "Oh, you're a 30-year-old bearded man, but you're describing this woman. I want to have sex with her." And everyone at the table is just like, we're a little uncomfortable by you now, man. But that's sort of where we're at. But no, your constitution is your ability to do that. Because I mean, think if you're a fighter or barbarian, you're the one running into the group of bugbears who are angry and wearing split mail and charging at you with clubs. Your wizard and your fighter, I mean, your wizard and your sorcerer or sorceress. Let's be not gender specific. Are sitting in the back of the group going, "Oh God, I have 8 HP. I'm level 5. I've rolled ones on every stat. Please protect me." I mean, that's where they're at. So
Yeah.
they're not taking hits. You're the one whose job is, all right, I've got 75 HP. I'm going to go fight this thing with my bare hands. It's just where it is.
I'm going to go get in a fist fight with a bear.
In Soviet Russia, bear fight you. Anyway.
Yes, that happened in America too.
Yes. Bear fight you anywhere. But, alright, well, this leads us to intelligence. Intelligence is knowing that tomato is a fruit. That's knowing and
Fun
things.
horticultural fact.
Oh, yeah, it is. There's my thing. It's actually technically a berry. We'll get into that at another point. So it's knowing that it's a fruit. And, guys, basically, this is saying, I know what that tree is. I know what this fish is. I know what time people come.
I've read books.
Exactly. This is book
I know
knowledge.
spells.
This is book knowledge, all right? And it's important because it's your ability to know things. But it's unlike wisdom, which is common sense. Wisdom is knowing that it is a fruit, but not putting it into a fruit salad. Wisdom is common sense. We all know that one friend who's like super freaking smart. They could just be like, "Give me the thermodynamics test. I will pass it with my eyes closed." But then they're the same.
Without a calculator.
Yeah, they're the same people who be like, "Oh, this guy wants to give me money. Here's my social security number." Like, they don't have common sense. They got a lot of book sense. I know some people like this that are just super freaking smart, but don't have the ability to know how to handle certain things. It's like they haven't ever lived out on the streets and had those hard times. Common sense is your ability to know that.
The wise old man.
The wise old man, as I like to say. That wise old man, he's lived a long time. He's not eating these berries, so I won't either. Go ahead, guys. They're all dead. They should have watched The Wise Old Man. That's wisdom. Alright? But intelligence is just knowing things. Wisdom is like knowing important things kind of thing. And both of them have their abilities. Like, wisdom's great for certain classes. Because you need to be the guide, the speaker, the voice.
Knowing old knowledge is sort of kind of one of the things. Is, knowing things of the gods, knowing things of the world.
That's wisdom.
Knowing things of people, being able to read cues.
Intelligence is like, I know what that berry is. I know what this is. I know what that is.
I know chemistry. I know physics.
Exactly.
I know mathematics. I am actually literate and can write.
That's intelligence. Charisma is our last one. And this is knowing that you shouldn't be, or actually not knowing, but being able to sell a tomato-based fruit salad to a stranger
I
because
call it salsa.
yes, all right, you're the bard, okay? So, but we found our bard, folks. But charisma is your ability to interact with people, your personability, your likability. Charisma is important, and I think it used to be a dump stat for a lot of people because if you're new to D&D, you're like, huh, this stat confirms how hard I hit shit. This one's how much health I have. This one's how intelligent I am. What's this
How
stat?
many skills I get?
What
That one's
what's this stat? How I look? How I act with people? Shit, I don't need that. It became like a dump stat. But
I remember our first group we ran with, we had a rogue who had we had two rogues who both had 5 charisma.
yeah, they wore
And we joke
masks.
they wore paper bags over their head because they didn't care, but they were both sneaky and
Oh yeah, like 17 and 18s on Dexes, but they couldn't. Shit, people screamed when they saw their face. But charisma, guys, is an important stat. I feel like I'm like, dude, dump, and it's amazing. Like I even above my barbarian. What did you say about barbarians the other day about charisma?
uh, charisma. As a barbarian with high charisma can convince the other guy to let you punch them in the face.
Exactly. Charisma is important for all classes. So that's sort of a general rundown of the 6 important stats that make your D&D character. Some of these stats or abilities are different in other games.
Yeah,
There's
for most, they use these same general stats because they've been well established. They're pretty well known. A lot of other systems might use other stats or might throw another one in. I know the Warhammer 40k uses a completely different stat system, but we'll talk about that later if we go into that 40k session we were talking about.
as much love as Matt and Oliver and Anthony have given Warhammer. I'm just going to give them the equipment and let them do a Warhammer 40k episode at some point because I've never played, but they're like in love with
No,
it.
we need you there because those reactions are amazing for someone who has no idea of the frozen hellscape.
Well, I have no idea what the hell's going on. But you guys are talking about like selling people into slavery, and it's just like nonchalant. Like, yeah, how much does that cost? 6 people? Oh, here's 6 people. Like,
It's like he said. He ran the Black Crusade, the evil campaign. I was running a good campaign where you're on the Inquisition, and they just going up to people like, "I need an ambulance. You're going to give me an ambulance. Okay, this is my ambulance now."
that would have to be a high charisma score too, for even on intimidate. But we'll get into that game another
Yeah.
day. Which leads us to our 2 questions. Sort of with that is, or our second question is, how do we get scores? Well, the book outlines 2 different ways. One is to roll for stats, which some people like doing because it sort of mixes it out, and some people don't like doing because they have shitty luck. If you're like with a luck
Or they don't
vampire,
like.
if you're with a luck vampire like Anthony, yeah, sometimes if you run a session with him, you want to have buy-ins because that way it guarantees everybody's on the same amount of points set, and Oliver will explain buy-ins here in a second, but
Yeah.
for rolls are very sort of the traditional way, and there's several ways to do rolls. There's hundreds of ways to do rolls. um as it being to strict rolls like roll 3d6s, that's your stat. Or roll 4d6s and drop the lowest one. Keep your top 3. Or what I like to do with my players, because I'm sort of like a giver as a DM, is make a tic-tac-toe board. There's going to be 9 scores. You get to take any 2 lines, horizontal, vertical, or diagonal, that you roll. And you just roll 9 scores, like you would for stats, and then choose your lines. It makes it really cool because if you roll an 18, you can take it technically twice. So a lot of people like to do it. Also, another homebrew rule I do out there if you're trying to figure it out is roll your 4 dice for stats. If on your first roll they're all the same number, it's like a Yahtzee, you get a 20. Some people are not big fans of that. Some people are incredibly lucky. Some people feel like we should keep it tight. I don't know. I've always been about the players. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, I've got a 20 on strength and I'm a barbarian.
Ah.
Happiness. So I think it's one of those things like, you can take it wherever you want as a DM. The cool
Yeah.
part about this is you have the ability to make it what you want. Oliver's going to talk to you about point buy now.
Now, if you're talking point buy, like he said, it's definitely going to keep everyone at the same level. There is no going to be skill based on luck or this where this character is just going to be objectively better than this character. It's going to be everyone has a point buy. You build it towards what you're trying to be as your character. There's a give and take. Like you said, you're going to generally be weaker unless you give them stupid amounts of points, which at that point it doesn't matter. But yes, you're generally going to be a weaker set. You're going to be more balanced towards the rules. A lot of the pre-made stuff you're going to see is going to be based around things where you're the weaker state of you point by. Most of your stuff is going to be good stats or 14, maybe amazing or 16 until you get to late game and have magical items and such.
Oh yeah. Point by a lot of people like. I've always been a fan of the roll, but I love dice, so that's just how it is. Another thing we really alluded to earlier, like some DMs are super hardcore. Like you don't choose your stats. It's like, all right, roll 3 dice, 14. That's your strength. All right, roll 3 dice, 13. That's your dex.
I ran in one of those campaigns. It was abysmal. I think I had everything was I had 110, 2 8s, a 9, a 12, and a 14. Those were my stats. It was abysmal.
Yeah. So I mean, you can choose. You as the DM can choose what you do with your players' rolls. But I think the biggest thing to remember is those are what your abilities are. They can always be different, as we've alluded to. But that sort of summarizes what ability scores are, and I hope that sort of cleared it up a bit.
There, and feel free to be creative with the way you get abilities. I mean, what we've said here certainly aren't the only ways. I've done a session where people got their scores by an interview where I gave them scenarios and they described how their character would handle it. And they had sort of free range. They were kind of gods in this realm, but they were sticking to their character and their actions there. As the DM, I gave them the stats at the end after the full interview, and a lot of people thought it was pretty creative, and some people who gave me good answers got better stats than people who were sort of like, I set the room on fire, I win.
Yeah. I mean, because they probably were wanting a conclusive answer. I feel like
Yeah.
that's a really good and creative way to do it. I've also done something similar with. I ran a session one time where everyone in the party, it was sort of in this world where magic was very relevant, even with non-magical classes, and you got a tattoo based on how you would answer these questions. You were placed into like a caste system, and that tattoo gave you an ability modifier for certain. Like, if you got the tattoo of the boar, you got a +2 to your strength, and also once a day you could cast boar strength upon yourself, that kind of thing. So I mean, you can go crazy with how you do your abilities. Uh, as DMs, the more experience you get, come up with fun, creative ways to make your characters come up with their
Maybe leave
stats.
them in the comments below.
Yeah, leave them down there, and give us some cool ideas. I hope I've seen a bunch
Every
of people
DM
grow.
is always looking to learn from others because everyone's come up with something creative, and however creative we are, we always take from others for our own ideas.
Oh yeah, and DMing is like teaching, which is basically like we steal from each other when we find something good that's working. Steal sort of a strong word. We borrow from each other when we find something that's working and try to redistribute it, use it in our own classrooms. DMing, your classroom is your table, and that's where you're working. And so we're very excited. Also, this week we're going to have our first big D&D session coming up. So on Saturday we are going to try to live stream, but have no promises because we've never done it before. But if we don't, we're at least recording it. We're going to be leading it out in episodes for you. So that's coming up. Along with, we have recently played a Betrayal in the House on the Hill game that's going to be putting out in 3 episodes coming up. So we're going to continue to give you your slice and dicing, slice and dicers. We know you love them. We're going to continue to give you your episodes coming up every Wednesday. But we're also going to try to add some other stuff in there to sort of keep
Give
you
you some more
guys,
stuff.
give you some more things to watch. Hopefully we don't bore you too much. And we bring in a lot of extra people for the games and D&D and stuff. And it should be really fun. I know Oliver and I will both be at the table on Saturday playing, and so you get to see us play as players. We've done a lot of DM talk. One of our friends, John, is going to be DMing, and we're excited to see you guys. So that concludes today's episode of Slice and Dice. And remember, folks, don't roll too many ones.